Sumesh and Madhu reached out to me a couple of days ago, and a great platform, Airbenders. Thank you for that. To talk about my ultimate story. This is a presentation which I gave in the UPAI conference, and unfortunately we weren't able to record it at the time, and so I'm lucky to have this another chance. It's a 30-minute recording, so I wasn't joking about bring your popcorn. You still have time. Go get your juice, your munchies, and then you can just sit back and relax. For the people who were at the UPI conference, this is your chance. This is your last chance to leave if you don't want to hear me speak again for another half an hour. Yeah, and yeah, after that we can do some question and answers. I think there were a few questions from the Airbender Instagram stories and my stories. We'll get to that, and if anything else you want to talk about from the presentation, anything at all. If I like the question, I'll answer it, and if I don't like the question, then you will be hearing me break like that, and then we'll just take the hint, and then we'll just skip that question. That's the great part about these video meetings, I guess. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and everything else is going to be self-explanatory. Let me know when you can see it, and we'll put things together. All right, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, guys, here goes. Hopefully the volume level is good as well.
When Manix asked me to talk about my Frisbee story, I was wondering why. What was so special about the stuff I had done? I haven't achieved anything that big yet, and I still have a lot of goals to reach. But as I started jotting down points, I realized how privileged I've been to experience all these different experiences. And I hope you enjoy the story. So sit back and enjoy.
How's the volume level? Just so that I don't ruin the entire presentation.
Good.
Was that audible?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Hi, my name is Jashan Shetty, and here is my story of how I fell in love with a sport widely associated with the nothing but dogs in a park, and the occasional demeaning inquiry asking whether ultimate Frisbee actually is a sport, or the very common, what's so ultimate about it? Basically any conversation with an ultimate Frisbee muggle. Over the years, this definitely hasn't improved with non-players, but I have got better with ignoring it, and it makes it easier that the sport is growing, meaning there are more of us to complain to. I started playing back in 10th grade when my friend Anant Narayan introduced it to us. He had read about a team called Learning to Fly in the newspaper, which was calling out for more players to come try out the sport, and started playing a couple of years before us. We were a bunch of football fanatics at the time, and didn't really get the point of chasing a piece of plastic around the football court. What was the point? Typical muggle mentality. As most of us know or have experienced when we were younger, The 10th grade is a big deal in India. It's the first big hurdle in our lives, with the board exams. And at that time for us kids, it was imprinted in our minds that those marks are what will define us for the rest of our lives. So it was a bad time to start anything, except for studying. Along with being football fanatics, we were big fans of sleeping. But somehow we woke up early in the morning before school for a couple of sessions and got ourselves to the police grounds near MG Road, all in our uniforms where we met learning to fly for the first time. We would play for around an hour before rushing to the bus when it came, sometimes without even finishing the point. Police grounds was a small ground which was usually packed with cricketers and cows. We got really good at avoiding picks and throwing around the cattle, which may sound funny, but wasn't the most exciting. What we really looked forward to was visiting Loyola College every weekend against Delta F. We would line up with the other kids of our age who came from the Loyola school and try to nick some points off the more experienced players. We eventually liked the idea of us kids trying to take over the world, and under the guidance of SL, made our own team called Falcons. With a few practices together, we were ready for our first tournament. And what a tournament to go to. Kodaikanal. After much pleading and begging and a couple of phone calls from senior Frisbee players to the parents, I finally got permission to the magical place of never-ending fields of grass. It was everything we had ever hoped for, and more. Great food, amazing weather, and people from all over. No, I have not been paid to promote this tournament. But yes, Kodaikanal is amazing. If there's one thing a bunch of aggressive, ambitious kids hates, it's losing. And how we lost games. We did manage to put in a good performance, getting a couple wins against the bigger name teams, but we couldn't wait to get to Loyola for practice next week. Unfortunately, for the next couple of years, this was completely impossible with us school kids having to prioritize studies. 12th standard exams forced a pause in the enthusiasm. If you thought 10th grade was regarded important in India, they make 11th and 12th standard seem like life or death. We did manage to squeeze a few more tournaments, but without proper practice and no time to go to Loyola, it wasn't fair to play with the more regular, hard-working Falcons, which were forever growing in number. Here came the rise of the spin doctors. Frisbee was not only growing in Loyola College, but also in the city in general, along with a lot of Frisbee players moving to the city for jobs. I was lucky enough to find a great bunch of individuals who were just looking to have a good time. Suddenly, I found myself develop from a kid just running around to a more senior player on the team, and even handling in crucial games. Losing games with a newer team, but with bigger responsibilities. It wasn't all too bad, to be frank. For the first time, winning isn't everything made some sense, which for the competitive, eager kids that we were always, sounded like a whole lot of bogus. As exams neared, Frisbee disappeared, which was necessary. I did well in my exams and got into NIT Surat for engineering. Oh, so prestigious, oh, so wonderful. For me, it meant I was moving away from my home and from Frisbee. So as I left Bangalore for the first time in schooling, I took a disc with me with the hope of starting something in college, or at least getting some throws. It didn't happen often. NIT was crazy about their studies, and those players who would get out already had their interests in already very strong basketball and football teams. And so, I too moved back to my first love, football. Which isn't always the easiest to do. The thing about this constant transition was the fact that the two sports couldn't be further apart. Football being rough, aggressive, and having more of a do whatever it takes mentality, whereas Frisbee is all about sportsmanship and spirit. I could feel myself getting irritated with the major body contact, or stopping myself from not calling stoppages for shoulder pushes, and asking for a perspective when I saw someone diving for a penalty. Coursework was continuing and getting heavier, and the summer after we were instructed to do a technical internship in our field of information technology. After which, I found myself doing exactly the opposite, messaging Manix to work at Pudyador. Pudyador is an education-driven child and family organization that caters to disadvantaged communities in Chennai, India. It was the first real taste of anything close to a job, and immediately I was thinking about how it wasn't too bad at all. It was surely better than the desk jobs the other classmates were talking about. I'd come here as an intern to coach, teach the kids from the NGO, varied from English to maths to Frisbee and football. And I was having a ball of a time. It felt like I mattered and was doing the most important thing possible by me at the time. I came out of it with several new friends and stories, and a small doubt of what I'm really passionate about. And with this confusion, I went back to college to study computers. A few months later, the doubt became a bit bigger, with what I feel has been one of the most influential experiences of my life: bridging the gaps in Surat. BTG, as we call it, had the aim of gender equality through sports and art, and we Frisbee players were going to be a big part of it. I jumped at the opportunity to be a coach and booked my tickets to Surat. All my excitement doubled when we were greeted with welcome signs from the local Surat players, who had been waiting for a while to surprise us. The next 5 days, we met people of all shapes and sizes, from every socio-economic background, from all over the country, all with the same goal of learning to play together. It was magical. We could see the barriers breaking in front of our own eyes. People who couldn't even communicate in the same language were becoming best friends. And little did I know that I too was building friendships that would last a lifetime. That's the thing about Ultimate, isn't it? The bonds you form with your teammates and even your opponents in this close-knit community is like none other. I've made friends from all over the country this way. Close friends that I know that I can depend on for anything. Is it the general SOTG that brings like-minded players to the sport? Or does the fast game attract people, and then their perspective of how sports should be played in general and how we treat the people around us change? I don't know, but I'm so happy that these friendships are being made. Little did we know that coaching would help us learn the game better and eventually understand the sport. Little did we know that on those very days we were also coaching the future Indian team stars and future national champions. This was the first time I really got to know my dear friends from Jumbish. I was a privileged Bangalore boy who hardly knew any languages other than English. And they were the ones who made me feel comfortable, immediately. And somehow we managed to converse with the limited Hindi I knew and the few words of English they understood. At this point, I was still new to the community and hadn't really played too many outside tournaments. Being one of the only Bangalore folks at the camps, in the beginning I was to myself, just looking around at everyone who seemed to have come to camp with buddies and in groups. Within moments, the Jumbish boys waved for me to come over and join them. saying, "Akele kyun bete ho? Hamare saath aao na." Or, "Why are you sitting alone? Why don't you come with us?" I was taken aback for a moment, surprised by the maturity these 15-year-old boys were showing. This was what this camp was about. This is why we were here, all put together to achieve. We spent the night talking, with animated actions to aid the language gap, about everything from our favorite players to the places in the world I've been to, and how I did get a passport and how they can do it too. I learned a lot of important things on field from Matt Hill and Dan Rule, the leaders of the coaching camp, and I'm going to cherish that forever. But the off-field moments were the ones that struck a bigger chord. Most of the kids didn't have phones at the time, so after 5 days that seemed way too short, we said our teary goodbyes, without knowing when or if we'll meet next. So with a heavy heart and lots of memories of my first coaching camp experience, I dragged my feet back to the IT classes in college. It was dull and boring, and I was away from Frisbee in this isolated place again. I just wanted to play more, and Chennai Heat was the next tournament coming up. It was one day I was studying in the library when I decided I needed to do something about it. I didn't have a team that I was practicing with, but I knew I wanted to start playing more and more and more. So I picked up my phone tentatively and messaged Sisa if I could play with L2F for that tournament. He quickly spoke to the upper management, because Sisa didn't always have the pull that he has now. Oh God, Sisa's probably going to see this, isn't he? I'm just going to insert some good things about Sisa, because I'm in a time crunch. Anyways, they said they would love to have me. Things just fell into place with the team having a few regular boys missing from the roster. It was the first time I played the beach tournament. It was the first time I played with L2F, and I absolutely loved it. The energy, the excitement of making quarterfinals of a national tournament for the first time, the family mentality, everything. We finished 5th after losing to the ever-so-fiery Flywild, with me matching up with many of the BTG co-coaches. This Chennai Heat was just the start of a long, winding journey with learning to fly, and I was ready for more and more and more. What made the tournament even better was the reveal of Jumbish and many of the other BTG campers to the rest of India. We coaches watched proudly, holding back tears when the community had their jaws dropping, looking at their skills and athleticism. With Indian Ultimate growing at such a rapid rate, it was time to show the world. Here came the very first opportunity with the World Under-23 in London. I knew the country was buzzing. To make it even more prestigious, Dan Rule was coming all the way from Australia to be our head coach. The first ever Indian national team. A chance to wear the Indian jersey. It's every kid's dream, mine very much included. We had a pre-tryout in Chennai and the final tryouts in Ahmedabad a few days before AUO. Me and Sushmita, my classmate and best friend, who had been along with me for most of my Frisbee journey, made it to the finals and gave it our all. The day of the results, we opened the mail together. She had made the team. For me, it was not to be. It was tough to digest. I thought I'd done well. I was angry when I saw the list of names. I commented congratulations on the post because every one of those names was a very close friend of mine. It would have been so great to play with them. I was so happy for them, but at the same time so confused about what they had done better than me. That's the thing about tryout results. It's not always easy, and you get lost in your own mind with all the ifs and buts and why not I. This was going to take some time. There were even 2 BTG Kids superstars, players who we had coached. Looks like a bit too well. I feel the day you get selected for a team, you get 100 messages of congratulations from all over, even people who you don't know. And it's an amazing feeling, don't get me wrong. That day when I didn't get selected, I felt the sweet messages I got from the people who expected me to get in were the people who really cared about me. One of those was now Team India player, Kamlesh Gamit. We had remained friends, and we would occasionally stop to talk if we ever passed each other in a tournament. It was a coincidence that he tracked me down on social media with his small Nokia 1100 the day after results. Little did we know that this was the start of a great friendship. Our Hindi and English were each still incomprehensible, but we seemed to get the points across with Google Translate and funny emojis. The funny part about this is we were both dissatisfied. Me about not getting into the team, and Kamru, being the humble kid that he is, was wondering why he was selected. It must have been a mistake. Why are none of my friends selected? You were the coach, you deserve it more than me. He was a kid 4 years younger than me who just made it to Team India, but still he was trying to cheer me up. He was right. It was time to reread the feedback given by the coaches. It was time to work harder and improve, stop sulking, and especially make sure that nobody ever gives you the same feedback again. I realized there was no point being angry or disappointed. Things weren't magically going to change, and I wasn't going to see my name on that list. I could either stay frustrated or get outside and start playing and work harder at the game we love. Over the years, Kamlesh and I became closer and closer, and found out even though we came from two very opposite different places, we had so much in common. Again, that's the magic of Ultimate Frisbee, isn't it? It just brings people together without worrying about backgrounds. So it went from hi-bye to sharing absolutely everything. From Frisbee to website designing, from schoolwork to dreams of the future. Dreams. Frisbee has done that to a lot of us here in India. Opened opportunities, given us chances we would have never imagined, and most of all, it's let us dream. The under-23 team did amazing and put us on the map, with each player proving why they had gotten selected, playing with some swagger against the biggest world names. I was ecstatic for them, but I wasn't going to let more opportunities pass. The next big moment came with the announcement of Wgc Tryouts. This was it, another chance to showcase. And I started training hard and specifically with the scenarios from the previous tryouts. And it all paid off at tryouts. I was isolated away as one of the top 5 performers. London, baby. The team was filled with superstars from around the country. And Matty Zemmel from Colorado, USA, was our coach. I think we owe so much to the likes of Dan and Matty, and I still see, to this day, similarities with the way we've learned, and now the way Indians are teaching the players of the next generation. Every year we had hiccups and barriers with respect to finances and logistics. And without the coach's contacts and some seriously hard work from the managers, I don't think it would have been possible. Even with the stacked team, we won only one game in a rain-filled. One win, 10,000 memories. This was the biggest Frisbee tournament there is. And maybe other people didn't expect us to do any better, but we as a team definitely expected more. I was left wanting for the country and for my personal game. During the last camp for the campaign, I received an offer letter from Deloitte that confirmed not only my recruitment, but also that I would be situated in Bangalore, which not only meant that I get to move back home, Bangalore again. I was extremely excited to get back to practicing with Altwef. The only way for me to grow, and with the team, and with me, the team too. By this time, India had started gaining a reputation in the Frisbee circuit after being regular to WCBU, WGC, and the Asia Oceanics. But with me just starting my professional career, I decided to give the next campaign a break. But as usual, India was putting up a stronger and stronger squad every year. And once again, I found myself. This time, the management decided to take a different approach, where the players have to get involved in finding as much sponsorship for themselves as they can. And me and my friend wanted to get on with it as fast as we decided to take a couple of different approaches. We set up a Keto page immediately for the Gujarat players. We took registration fees for camps and lessons in schools and colleges. We made bake sales and tried to get as much done in the short time frame, and managed to raise around 80,000 for the team and Kamlesh as soon as possible. The teams seemed to be getting stronger and stronger in India Ultimate as we got more experience, with the WCBU France squad finishing 5th and beating some of the top teams in the world. This was the moment I feel India Ultimate leveled up. We were no longer going to Worlds to have fun and just for the experience. We were there to make a statement, to show people we can compete, and that India Ultimate had arrived. When I said I was taking some time off from selections, I didn't mean I wasn't training behind the scenes. Because what was coming up next, it was the one that got away, under 24, but Australian edition. All the emotions and passion was running back into me when I stepped onto the fields on the final tryouts. Conditions couldn't have been crazier, with it being raining throughout the week. The fields were mucky, and every step was causing a big splash. People were concentrating more on the ground conditions rather than the tryouts, and it was getting very difficult to throw and cut. This is where good selectors and coaches step in and snapped us out of it. Everyone's facing the same conditions. Just give it your all and leave it out there. Who knows what could be in store for us when we get selected, they said. No one can predict that. I can now confirm what was in store for us. Perth is known to be one of the windiest cities in the world. Oh, how I can go on and on about why we chose the windiest city to play a Frisbee tournament. But that would be another PPT. Box and the coaches will definitely add slides to those. So that pretty much gives it away. But yes, I made the team. I remember it being a torturous wait for the announcement. I wanted this so bad. The day and a big desire to get started. At the first camp, it was getting even better, because I was going to be on the team with some of my best friends, Sush, Meena, Datri, Ritwik, and so many people that I really love. I decided to put my name in the running for captaincy. I was one of the senior players, being 23 years, just like I had in London. I must have said something right, because they chose me to be the captain soon after. Captain of the Indian under-24 Frisbee team. Wow, who would have thought? We practiced hard and set high goals for spirit and results. Like I said, India was now at a stage where we were going to really compete and turn heads. And oh, how we did. The opening match, right after the ceremony, was India versus the hosts Australia. We cut our flag ceremony short and ran to a nearby field to warm up, with Australia warming up in the end zone on the other side. I went up for the toss with my co-captain Datri and won the toss, defense. And we somehow got to go downwind as well. Perfect. Looked like it was going to be a good game. The game began with Australia taking a quick upwind score down the field, down the foreside. 1, 2, 3, the points were rolling in for them. And just like that, we were crumbling. They were getting D after D and scoring immediately. The score was already 7-1. We got into a huddle and had a small chat and then took the field again. This was a game of runs. There was so much wind that one break would cause 2 breaks because of how strong they were. And we got ours after a great toe of the line by Ritwik. The momentum was back on our side, and we kept piling on the points and took half 8-7 from 7-1 down. The rest of the game was just all a big blur to me. I remember running onto the field when Rama scored the winner. It was easily the most exciting moment of my life. The rest of the tournament had its highs and lows. We played some good ultimate, but also had some crucial mistakes that knocked us out of contention for the quarterfinals. The name Malaysia still gives me a shiver down my spine. We learned the hard way that sometimes the most attractive ultimate isn't always the best. Sometimes you just have to dig deep and win ugly. Make use of the conditions to your own advantage. We left Australia with a heart full of memories and with many people around the world very proud of us. When I went back to work after Australia, I still felt something was missing. I was doing this job because of convenience, not passion. The pay was good, so was the work-life balance. I was able to play and go for tournaments whenever I wanted. But is this what I want to do? I was creating the user interface for some Japanese company who in turn was using the product to create reports for some pharmaceutical across the earth who I will never meet. Wow, I felt so minute. It was definitely time for change. And like a shining light calling out for me, I stumbled upon a post from Mr. Vardhan Kabra about joining Surat Ultimate to help out in coaching in the city, as well as managing all the outreach programs and guiding the kids. It seemed like a role meant for me. And after much discussions with my supportive family and friends, I put down my papers and said goodbye to Deloitte after 3.5 years. The thought was to eventually go out and study more, yes, but I was going to enjoy every moment of this new chapter. So here I am, sitting in Surat, writing this conclusion. This year is going to be all about doing what I love and actively seeking discomfort, putting yourself in scenarios that I usually wouldn't have. Come out on top. It's not going to be that hard with the help of my new Jumbish family around me. For anyone listening, don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. The news stories have already begun. be it meeting a sarpanch of a village in Suwali and teaching around 100 kids from there, to finding a Ganesh Murthy flywell jersey in a local municipal school in Umra Garden. Or be it walking through Fountainhead and seeing photography from students about Frisbee. Fear less, dominate more. Or having Kamlesh help me through the night to finish these people. The stories don't seem like stopping soon. Maybe next conference. Until then, keep seeking discomfort and doing what you love. Thank you.
I think that's the end. I know there's a bit of a lag while I'm presenting, but are we done?
Thank you, Jayesh. That was great. I'm sure everybody has a lot of questions, and you also have questions from before. So feel free to take it away.
Yep. So that was pretty much checking. That was pretty much the story part of it. If any of you have any questions about any of it, so basically, a little background. I made this presentation for the UPAI conference, and it was right when I was moving to Surat. So there was, I think, pulled an all-nighter for this. I know there's already banter about banter on the WhatsApp groups about my accent, and I was pretty much like 5 in the morning when I was doing this. Yeah, you guys can go ahead and ask whatever questions you want. I do have one question. So this obviously was up till 2 months ago, and Sumesh asked me to talk about what's happening now and what happened after I went to Surat. So I can start with that, and if anybody has anything, you can just put it down in the chat, and I will check it out. So, right, it said, I think one of the parts said to seek discomfort, and then I was hit with a global pandemic. So I don't think there is much more discomfort than that. Discomfort for everybody. Unfortunately, not everybody is as fortunate as others. A huge part of the Surat Ultimate community um, come from little more humble backgrounds. Lots of their families are daily wage workers. So the pandemic hit harder for some people more than others. So I think a major chunk of my work now is just making sure that everything's all right, physically and mentally as well. Yeah, so we have like 15-day periodic checks. We have a big list of players from all over the city, and we go and call them up, check how they're doing, check how their family's doing, their health, any issues money wise, and very sadly even food wise, and we get a response. And I think in a few days I have to do the next check. We have helped quite a few families with the ration part of it, just to figure out if people are able to have 3 meals a day. I think a lot of us take it for granted, and it's quite sad that that the parents can't support them. So we're trying to do whatever we can in that respect. Yeah, that's pretty much how the day goes. We're trying to keep some online fitness classes going, so that people stay fit and that we're not fat and old. Well, old we can't do anything about, but we're not fat when this all ends, and it will end soon. Yep, that's about that answer. I had one more question from Sangi, who asked me Milo or Boost. Bonvita all the way, Sangi. No question. Chat. Any other questions about the presentation? All right. So there was one more very common question that came up in the Airbenders poll in my Instagram stories. It was how much did you have to work to get into the India squad, and what it takes to get into a national team and the preparation and stuff like that. I think Varun and somebody else asked this question. Who's Kite? Why am I wearing a cap inside? Okay, I'll get to these questions later. All right, so the first one is what it takes and the preparation to be on an India team. I think the answer for that would first of all, the obvious stuff, just hard work. Everyone's going to say stay dedicated, get in your throwing sets, keep doing those sprints. That's definitely part of it. I think after you do all those things and everybody gets to a level, there are only 15 spots on that national team. And even after all the hard work, there are almost 20-25 people almost at the same level. After all the hard work, everybody's done the throws, everybody's adaptable. They can throw, they can cut, they can play defense. I think after that is where two things come into play. One would be your mentality, and most definitely a lot of luck as well. When I say luck, I would say my best tryouts were the ones where I didn't get selected into the team. I gave a really good tryout at the first under 23. I was really proud of myself. The recent WGC, you can't do more than just leave it all on the field, right? I thought I did really well, but obviously the coaches are going to have something in their mind, and they're looking for some specific stuff. Like I said in the presentation, you can't get down about these things. Just prove yourself in the next tournament. And the luck part of it, I would say again, right? I don't think I had the best tryouts before Australia, but maybe the coaches and the selectors saw something that they didn't see in the others, and I was very fortunate to get onto that team and travel to Australia with them. So my answer would be definitely attitude, the mental strength, and of course a little bit of luck after you get to that benchmark. Yeah, quick shout out there. I remember right after that under 23, the first one in London where I didn't get selected. I remember trying to go to as many practices as possible. It wasn't just L12. I know a lot of the Airbenders watching today have driven me up and down to practice. Thank you, Sana. Thank you, Vijay and Datri, Sindhu, so many of you. Just try to go out there and just try to play as much as you can. Just create as many scenarios as you can. And that's about it for that question. Madhu, I have a lot of other chat going on. Do you see any other open questions?
No, I don't think, I mean, there may be questions that's sent directly to you. So if there are, we can take those. There aren't any questions on the public chat.
Private. Somebody's asked me why I'm wearing a cap inside. First reason, I badly need a haircut. Second reason, I don't want to get any hair in somebody's pizza. I am in Dome Pizzeria. Again, shout out to them.
Thank you, Jayesh. It's good to talk to you and see you today. And thanks everybody for joining in. You will get your answers for your private questions from Jashan later, I am sure. Bye guys, have a great weekend and a great evening.